I have more, but probably not enough more. Mother. Subscribers will recognise my cheap little Aldi bandsaw back on its original stand, albeit with a rubbish clamp. This was a great way to cut a bunch of 45-degree angles for the frame that I needed. I did a bunch of cuts before I started filming just to try and dial in the 45 degrees correctly. And yeah, here using my trigger lock just to let it ride down the cut, which is quite convenient way to do all of this. I have some WD-40 in that spray bottle for cutting lubricant. I don't know how good WD-40 is for steel. I normally use it for aluminium, but it seemed to do the job. I'm cutting here outside because I have all my long material storage on this side of the garage kind of tucked behind things, so I have to pull it all the way out of the garage to get at it. And so yeah, I end up setting up here to do all the cuts. And the customary blocks of wood to try and keep everything at the right level so that the cut doesn't fall completely off. And here we go with welding. I love TIG welding. This 90-degree clamp is not the best thing in the world, but for this sort of thing, taking a bit of time to really line up those cuts and try and keep this nice and flat definitely is the thing to do. A quick clean of the mill scale just to make the welding a little bit easier. Now in theory, if I got all these cuts right and I got a really nice butt joint, then I probably didn't even need any filler rod for these. Now, I didn't get the cuts completely right. There was a little bit of an angle to them, top to bottom, that I wasn't expecting. So, on about half of the joints, well, slightly under half the joints, I did need some filler rods just to kind of bridge a bit of a gap. But the other half, I was able to weld without any kind of rod, just beautiful. It was fantastic. Here you can see I've got the TIG welder on pulse. It's pretty much its slowest pulse setting, but it's pretty punchy on the power, so each pulse does a pretty good job of melting a puddle. This was me experimenting with how this would work out, and I was pretty happy with the results. I did do a little bit of cleanup on the welds in the end, but I probably could have lived with them even without. Definitely on these end corners, I was using the filler rod really just to get the original puddle to mix on each side, and once I'd done that, it pretty much stitched down the end very nicely indeed. I will say during this, I was having some problems with my welding mask not being able to get the right brightness level. It seemed to flip between being too bright or too dark, which is kind of annoying. If I hadn't had the corner clamp, I probably would have tacked both sides before stitching the whole side just to try and avoid warping, but since I had them pretty securely clamped in the first place, it didn't really make any difference, so it was easy just to stitch both sides on their own. And here I am just checking the line up with the other half that I'd already welded. So now I just need to figure out the space required to weld the whole frame together. This is where having a good bench clamp really helps, a decent bench vise, I should say. Being able to hold this whole frame in place really nicely, very easy to use then. take a look at some of that welding. TIG welding is the best. Like, seriously. I'm not great at it, but it makes me feel good. Take a look at this side. That one was perhaps a little over much. It might be a little bit unjoined now I look at it. Here we have my bending profile. It cuts slices through the metal in order to make it easier to bend it around this form, and then just weld it all up and grind it back round again, which works really well as a way of getting pretty consistent bends that match up with the chairs. So I clamped up both legs to give me this kind of horizontal reference so that I could run across with an angle grinder and take the ends off so they will be flat against the frame. That's the idea. This is my rig for welding the leg on. I just have a tripod I have zip tied the leg to just to hold it vertical in place so I can tack either end. Then I can do the other side, put in a cross brace. Yeah. Over to the MIG welder now, because this is much easier when you need to kind of be outside and filling some gaps. I wasn't too worried about these welds. My little tripod mechanism ended up working out great, just as a quick and easy way to hold this in place. And then quickly welding in a cross brace over what will be the middle of the bottom. Few coats of paint with a rattle can, undercoated and black coated, flipped it around and around and painted it. Pretty happy with that finish for the metal frame. So this piece of plywood is cut to fit inside that frame. I have painted it with some weather shield paint. I mean, it's going to be tiled, but it'll be outside a lot. But I also have this offcut of this kind of under tile stuff that I used in my ensuite, which is just about the right size to kind of completely wrap it and such. So I might as well do that. I'm going to tile on top of it. This will keep the wood hopefully from rotting over time. So now I just need to figure out how to apply this to that without making a horrible mess. Viewers of a sensitive disposition should probably look away round about now, or, you know, skip ahead a couple of minutes to avoid the swearing and frustration portion of the video. Oh, it was going so well, viewer. This happy-go-lucky man you see before you, right until now. God damn it. That is what impatience gets you. Oh. Yeah, this is basically torched. Well, I have more, but probably not enough more. Mother. Come on. Why? That's frustrating. That's super frustrating. This was just a simple idea, simple job. And that has completely fucked it. It has just cut it. that was unbelievably aggravating. I rescued as much as I could without ruckling, and now I'm going to use the little bit that I have left to try and wrap this back corner. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's going to be under a patio and also under a pergola. But yeah, there was a great theory there that in my mind was really straightforward and went very badly very quickly. I'm going to try and do this a little bit closer to the way you actually use this material, which is to unpeel a little bit and get it stuck, and like unpeel it as you roll it. I should have probably just done that in the first place and not tried to do it in one big piece. But there you go. I would say you live and learn, but I'm hoping not to have to deal with this horrific material ever again. And now out into the sunshine just to screw that wood down. I welded on those little tabs to the frame. This helps because the plywood, of course, is not really straight or flat, so it sort of pulls everything down into a good alignment and holds everything steady. I was going to use full kind of regular tile adhesive and mix up a batch, but I realised that for 2 tiles it really just was not worth the effort and mess. So I just went and bought some, like a no more nails thing. Like this, it just needs to hold them broadly attached. They're just going to sit here under the force of gravity and their own weight. So this seemed like by far the easiest and cleanest mechanism just to stick these tiles down. Last job, of course, grouting. Always love a bit of grouting. This is unavoidably messy, but it is what it is. There's not a lot to do here. Big old bucket of water so that I can clean up with a sponge as I go along and just work my way around the edges. Of course, I way underestimated the amount I needed for even this small number of sides. Ended up making 2 batches. Never can judge grout properly. Oh, there we go. That is the finished beast on the patio next to the chairs. Looking pretty good. Pretty happy with how that came out. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Cheers.